Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Blasingame. I'm your 2021 SPE president, and today I'm joined by my successor, Dr. Kamel Ben-Naceur, who's the 2022 SPE president, and Mr. Mark Rubin, who is the SPE CEO and executive vice president. This is the second of two SPE member town halls concerning the expiration of merger between the Aapg and the SPE. We had the first one this morning for the Eastern Hemisphere, which was conducted at the lovely time of 0100 this morning in Texas. Our goal in these town halls is to give you a bit of orientation and then for quite a while to take your input. Why are we having them? Because in May 2021, we announced that the executive committee of the Aapg and the SPE board had unanimously approved to continue the discussions of a consolidation of the Aapg and the SPE into a new organization. Remember, the full membership of the SPE will be involved in this merger. This will be discussed in a few moments by both Kamel and by Mark. These town halls are for your information and to bring forward your questions. Look, we need to hear from you. We are here to take your input and to try to utilize it to define the future of our discussions and our plans and how we're going to program the continued exploration of the merger. We have a website. It's very simple. It's www.aapg-spe-merger.org, or you could just type Aapg space SPE space merger, and I'm sure it'll come right up. So the big question we get a lot in SPE is, for those who don't know, of course, is who is Aapg? Aapg is the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. They were founded in 1917. They have 7 offices around the world in Tulsa, Washington, D.C., London, Dubai, Bogota, Singapore, and then Lagos. They have approximately 40,000 total members in 129 countries, and they also have a number of affiliated societies. They differ slightly from SPE in how they structure, so these affiliated societies are often what you might think of as a regional component. The Aapg is a nonprofit corporation, is a 501c6 organization, and the SPE, of course, is a 501c3. That is a difference, but that can all be worked out in the merger discussions. The collaboration between the Aapg and SPE have been very successful over the years, and again, both Kamel and Mark will give you a little more detail on this, but in particular, the Unconventional Resources Technology Conference, which I chaired for 3 years, the Offshore Technology Conference, which has been around since 1969, the International Petroleum Technology Conference, the IPTC, and the Petroleum Resources Management System, which is a PRMS. Then, by the way, as you can recall, that's the only standard that SPE currently publishes. We do have 2 substandards that we're working on, but this is the major one. And of course, Aapg is a sister society to this, as are others. They're a major partner in this. So this standard would be continued under this new organization as well. In addition, and lastly, we have a number of joint workshops, symposia, and we conduct operations in some sort of collaboration in more than 40 countries. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass over to Kamel. He will talk about a few points on why we're going to look at the merger and what are the aspects of it that affect the membership. So Kamel, with that, I give the microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Good day, everyone. I hope everyone is fine. So the first question is, why merge? We are 2 strong organizations. We have what seem to be different memberships, but actually what unites us is much more than what differentiates us. Geoscientists and engineers work on projects from the exploration to the appraisal to the development of fields, and they are always exchanging ideas, and whatever comes out of a geological model would go and then feed into a reservoir model. So I think that we are pretty much united in terms of the way we use information, and being together would create an opportunity to build a stronger organization. We have many common themes, and I will come back to them later. The merger will address the needs of both organizations today and in the future. Today, we are strong petroleum focused. In the future, we also need to see where the energy transition will be taking us in terms of new areas like hydrogen or CCUS and others. And then finally, why merge? Because basically in most companies, we have those groups working together between scientists and engineers in virtual rooms, in drilling rooms, and so on. They're all always working together. And so we're just mirroring that collaboration. Second question is why now? Well, it didn't come out of the blue. As Tom has mentioned, we have been collaborating for more than 5 decades in areas like OTC and more recently, EarTech. The concept is not new. There have been at least 5 years since the idea has been floated around. Now we are, after seeing finally some recovery after the COVID, we are looking at new ways of doing things, and we are both organizations thinking pretty much along the same line. Our corporate stakeholders, the companies that have been supporting us, have expressed firm support for a consolidated organization. They see lots of value of having Aapg and SPE together. The third point is that the energy transition will be changing the way we produce and use energy in the future. And we have together to consider what would be the alternatives to today's business. Today, oil and gas enjoys a 56% market share in terms of primary energy. In the future, that market share will decrease, but it's still going to be close to 50% in the sustainable development scenario by 2040, 2050. Both organizations are also engaging the membership in new ways. We have seen during the COVID that we have gone to new forms of communication. We have gone to webinars, much more digital content. And while both organizations have done a great effort, we still need to learn about transforming that into a value proposition for our both organizations. We are also, both organizations, looking at fields like carbon capture, utilization, and storage. We have technical sections that are looking at that. We have done workshops and forums together. Hydrogen is going to be, in the energy transition, a significant energy vector. And then geothermal uses lots of the skills that we have in both organizations. And then it's also the opportunity to design this new organization for the future. So, more importantly, what's in it for the membership of both organizations, especially for the SPE today? First, the relevance in an evolving energy landscape for a one-stop professional organization that would be combining the knowledge and the skills of the most of the professionals in the energy industry. Preservation of the fundamentals of both organizations, we expanding the coverage of shared and emerging issues. Let me just put a caveat that we will not be the solar energy organization of the future or the wind energy organization of the future. We already have other organizations that are doing it very well, but the skills in our organization can certainly help in developing offshore wind projects, for instance, And then we can also use solar energy in our own projects as a way of generating steam that could be used for enhanced oil recovery. Our membership, this will meet the need of the next generation while serving today's petroleum geoscientists and engineers through many areas. First, cross-training. Our members in our curriculum have significant parts of geology and geophysics, but this will be an opportunity for them to continue to nurture that initial training. Data are very important, and we are sharing initiatives with them and other organizations like Energy and Data. Publications, we have also the possibility to have communities with a larger broadband. And finally, we share in common the distinguished lecture program that are run by each organization separately, but we have lots of interest, let's say, when you are an SPE member, to attend the distinguished lecture from Aapg and the other way around. So these are all the rationale and what it means for membership. And now I'm going to pass it on to the CEO of the SPE, Mark Rubin. Mark.
Thank you, Kamel. I want to touch on the work that we're currently conducting to explore the merger and advance the idea of the merger. Recently, we've conducted focus groups with young professionals as well as students to try to understand their needs and what kind of needs they would have for the new organization. Throughout the process, we've had several, this is one of the examples of a town hall, we've had several sessions with different groups of members to try to get feedback and make sure that we understand what the members are going to need from the new organization, and that's a big part of what we're concerned about and focused on. We also recently held what we called a strategic foundation session with the combined group of the Aapg Executive Committee and the SPE Board of Directors to develop the mission and vision statements that we think we will have for the new organization. I was really encouraged by the way the Aapg Executive Committee and the SPE Board of Directors worked together. They worked together fairly seamlessly, and I was impressed with the foresight that they had in developing a proposed mission and vision statement for the new organization. We have some task forces that are underway. There are a lot of different things that we're going to have to integrate between the two organizations. One of those is components, or you would know them better if I called them sections and student chapters. We have our model of sections and student chapters. Aapg has a different model. There's going to be a lot of work involved in melding the two different approaches together, but we really think we've got an approach that's going to be workable. We've done a lot of work on this and a lot of work very quickly to figure out how we would go forward with that. Additionally, we have a task force focusing on the membership model. And actually, for the task force on the membership model, and most of the groups who've been working on this, they've really kind of focused on trying to simplify things for all of our members, for the members of both organizations as we come together. And that group has made a lot of progress. One of the areas that I've been focused on is defining the new governance structure for the new organization. Like a lot of things, what we've really seen is that the SPE model is very workable for the larger organization. We will kind of build on the existing SPE model for governance that is really focused on the board of directors and the way they govern and direct our activities. But in governance and everything else, we've had a really good, thoughtful conversation between the two organizations. And we've reached some conclusions that I think are really sound for the new organization. Now, we want, the reason we're doing this town hall and other town halls is to get your feedback. We need feedback from the entire membership. We have the website that Tom mentioned earlier that provides an opportunity to give us feedback, but we're going to have multiple sessions with different groups of members. This is just one of them, and your feedback is really important in building a new organization. So what's next? The SPE board will meet later in September, and we will have a proposal to them to move forward to the next steps of merging the two organizations. Aapg's executive committee also meets later in September, and they will do the same. After that, there is additional approval processes, and the processes are a little different between Aapg and SPE. But for SPE, I would expect in the first quarter of 2022, assuming that the board agrees to go forward, in the first quarter, we'll have a member vote. And for us to complete this merger, we must have a member vote. All members will be given the opportunity to vote on the merger, and we'll require a 2/3 majority to agree to go forward with this. So with that, that's all I have to present. But now's the time for you to ask your questions. We look forward to a lively discussion, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kamel. And I've been in the background pulling some of the questions that our question catchers are feeding to us. Mark, you just answered the first one, which is from Jim Sirica, who's a professor at University of Tulsa. Thank you, Jim. He asked, will there be a membership vote? And you clearly stated there is a legal requirement that we have a 2/3 majority to proceed. Of course, that's 2/3 of those who voted, not necessarily 2/3 of the membership. So any other clarification you want to provide with that? Timing, expectations, so forth?
No, I mean, the timing, like I said, it'll be in the first quarter of 2022, I believe. The timing depends a little bit upon how the Aapg process plays out, as well as ours. We're trying to do things roughly at the same time when it comes to the member vote.
Correct. Kamel, this next question is directly for you, if you're ready.
Yes.
It's a long one, and we all know I'm a slow reader, so please be patient. You mentioned that commercial organizations, presumably operating companies and vendors, have expressed support for the idea, and I can confirm that. Certainly, they would desire fewer shows. Have any of these organizations expressed their support by, say, a 10-year endowment or some sort of other mechanism, and I'll read it verbatim, to work through its teething pains? We hadn't used that term yet, but that's a really good one. And will the managers allow their staff to attend a 5-day meeting instead of a 3-day meeting? And I admit that was also discussed yesterday in the Aapg town hall that was conducted independently of this. So this is a company culture question, as you can see. So I'll let you take a moment and think about how you might want to answer that.
Thank you, Jim, for the question. I think that first, in terms of what our members will see in the future, is certainly they will continue to enjoy the major events, and we've been associated in both organizations in those events, whether it's OTC or ERTEC. So I think from that standpoint, you will see actually the possibility to attend more events in the future. In terms of support from the organizations that is significant for us in terms of exhibitions, and we don't expect a decreased revenue from them. We would love to see a commitment for a 10-year support from organization, and certainly we will discuss that idea. This is a brilliant idea in terms of, we have done it in the past for some of our programs like the membership support and so on. But I think that we need to continue to have this level of commitment from the support for programs like One Petrol and others to help us in the future. In terms of the way, the number of days of events, I think that we will look at what makes sense in the new reality post-COVID, because perhaps the requirements for travel in the future will be different from what they were pre-COVID.
Thank you very much, Kamel. Mark, this one's going to go to you, but I'm going to answer it, and then you're going to correct me if that's okay. Will lifetime memberships be affected? And I would say they damn sure better not be, but that's okay. I'll defer to your wisdom. You're the CEO. I'm just the lowly president, but I'm certain that we have a plan for that. And of course, AAPG does not have an equivalent due structure for lifetime members. So if you want to comment on that, go ahead, please.
Sure. Like you, I simply can't imagine the lifetime membership going away. It's not something that we have completely resolved. We've resolved some of the top, kind of top of the list membership issues, like we've discussed, how much to charge for a membership, what the structure of the membership would look like. But that's one of those things that we really haven't. Well, we haven't resolved it. Like you, I cannot imagine that going away. I think that would be an awful mistake if we lost that.
This next question is one that all of us need to sort of give a little bit of guidance on, and it's popping up in several different places, so I'll try not to repeat it, but it essentially is, I have no problem with a merger, but my question is, are there other opportunities to merge? So I will speak last, uncharacteristically. Mark, would you like to go next?
Sure. The key for me is for all of the associations working in our industry to work together. Our industry is facing a lot of challenges. Some of the challenges are really unprecedented with the expectations of the energy transition, and we really do have to work together. Whether that means merging with other organizations, maybe so, maybe not. We have had conversations with other organizations beyond AAPG about joining us, and they're going to have to make those decisions for themselves as to their interest. But regardless of whether there are follow-on mergers after this one, I see the associations in our industry working even more closely together, even though we've already been working very closely together for the past decade or two.
Kamel?
So we have had some very positive feedback from the SEG. Their president, Maurice Nassim, has written a very nice column in July, and he's very supportive of this, of the merger, and it's also, asking the question to its membership, how would they see a potential increased association in the future? I think that we're certainly, from an SPE standpoint, very open to organizations that would be sharing our mission and values, but we certainly, from a practical point, we have to do one step at a time.
I'm just going to add really quickly that we're getting some questions now about how can members help make this a success. And again, this is a multi-person answer. In other words, what would you like us to do or not to do? And I won't say this out loud, but I'll just say it's an anonymous former board member who is a great supporter of all things SPE. And I think their intention is to ask, how do we get the folks that really want to see a progressive path? How do we get that to happen? So I'll first direct it at Kamel, if that's okay. Sorry, Kamel, to put you back on the spot.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. I think that we will need the support from the SPE and Aapg enthusiasts to make it succeed. We will have to go through lots of details, and certainly by working together, Mark mentioned that we have several committees that are looking at very different aspects. But what we want to make sure that we address all issues, and we need your help, we need your support, and we need also your guidance to make sure that we are not leaving any of what could be considered sacred cows for both organizations that are not being addressed. So I think that from that standpoint, it's definitely and a very enthusiastic yes, please.
Mark, do you have any comment on what you would like members to do or not to do?
Yeah, and I'll start with the not to do. We've had a few. Look, we've had great support from a lot of our active volunteers. We've had a few committees or student chapters want to kind of jump the gun a little bit and go ahead and combine or merge activities with some Aapg groups. It would be premature to do that. We need to operate under business as usual and until we get farther along in the process. And so that would be the kind of the not to do thing. But the to do thing is we really do appreciate the enthusiastic support from a lot of active volunteers around the world. You know, give us your feedback again. I mean, I'm saying that again, but the more feedback we get from you about how you see things playing out and what you think is essential to preserve and to do differently is really useful to us. So keep giving us that feedback.
And of course, I'll be uncharacteristically brief, look you straight in the eye and say, the best thing you can do is to vote. So with that, we'll move on to the next question. And the next question is also for Mark. Mark, this is an interesting one. It's one that, frankly, I hadn't thought about, which is how would a merger impact professional engineering and geoscience exam and licensure? And I know how you're going to respond, or I know how I'm going to respond, but I'll let you take the first stab at that.
Yeah, you know, there are a number of things like that are really important and that we want to be careful not to mess up. And so, you know, Aapg has their approach to certification. We have our approaches to licensure and certification. I don't see us really making significant changes to those approaches, at least from the SPE side. That said, it's the kind of thing that we'll be discussing probably over the next couple of years. It's not the kind of thing that we would ever consider a very quick change, but there may be some opportunities presented by this. But this is one of those situations where we don't want to mess up what we have right now by doing something just oddball or crazy. We want to be respectful of the needs of members, and members need from the SPE side, they need our support for the licensure program and for our global certification program. And
my comment would be along the same lines. Licensure is by state, at least in the U.S. and in Canada. By province or territory. But you know, this isn't a really good question because this is one of those things that will have to be maintained. It is one of the things that both organizations support. Kamel, I'm going to throw you a little bit of an easy one, and frankly, it's a toughie. But I don't see any loss in the value of membership with this merger. My only question is, what's the name going to be? So, congratulations, you get it early, and good luck with it.
Well, I think that the first point before deciding on a name is agreeing on the mission and vision for the new organization. And when we had exploratory talks earlier this year with a small group, we tried to draft a mission statement, and it was amazing how rapidly we have converge. And one significant event that happened afterwards was a couple of weeks ago when we have the boards of both organizations meeting together to discuss what could be the common mission and vision. And I think that takes precedence over the name. Once we have done that, once we are satisfied with what this new organization is aiming at, then the name will come out. It's not going to please everyone, but I think this would be the process I would describe.
We just received a question that is a little bit long, but it is of importance, and we're going to sort of jump it in the queue if that's okay with everyone. And it goes along the line as there's considerable concern among many AAPG members, senior members, that the discrepancy in membership numbers between the two organizations, that is SPE and AAPG, where SPE has a substantially larger organization, will result in a takeover as opposed to a merger of equals. What do you say to members who express concern over the loss of identity or culture as a result of this merger? I'm going to go last, if that's okay with you, gentlemen. Whoever wants to go first on this one, please go. I have it listed as Mark, you take it first, and Kamel, you take it second, and I'll go third.
Yeah.
You know, I view this as a very important issue. We cannot allow kind of one interest to dominate the organization. And what I would actually point to is the success that we've already had in SPE of creating different technical disciplines within the organization and ensuring that we focus on meeting the needs of each of those disciplines. You know, what we can't do is there are a lot of great programs within Aapg and SPE. What we can't do is simply rationalize and eliminate programs that members value. We have to focus our attention on the programs that have the most value, but we need to be very careful in figuring out how we combine the two organizations, and we need to ensure that we treat every technical discipline within the new organization, including those from the Aapg side and the SPE side, that we are very careful about making sure that we meet the needs of every separate group within the organization.
So I fully agree with Mark's comments. I think the SPE has a wide diversity of technical disciplines. And if you compare the, let's say, a reservoir engineer to a facilities engineer, perhaps I see more commonality between the reservoir engineer and the geologist. They tend to work more often together. So I don't see, from the start or from the design, we have seen this merger as a merger of equal organization where there is full respect for the other organization. And it doesn't matter whether we are 4 times larger in terms of size. Really, what we need to make sure that we maintain the successes from both organizations and we develop new areas of success together.
My closure comment on this was really along the lines of what Mark was saying, which is that the disciplines have to come first. And if we build the pillars around the disciplines, I think that everything will be okay. The geoscience folks will be happy with the maintenance of their disciplines. And as Kamel just mentioned, there'll be even more integration of the disciplines. Of course, as you know, we're all volunteer organizations, and this will require more expertise, more engagement of individual members who are responsible for those pillars or those disciplines, but that'll come with time as well. This is going to be a little bit of a twist, but Kamel, there's a question that's directed to you on sustainability, and it's asked, will sustainability be the overarching theme that links both organizations into the new? And I will comment that I read your JPT editorial or your comments, and you address this. So I think this should be relatively straightforward.
Thank you, Tom, first for reading the JPT article today. I think that what we have been doing together over the last decade in terms of supporting sustainability is outstanding. I look at the CCUS work, the technical sections, the meetings that were organized together, and then more recently, last year, we had the Gaia summit in Fontainebleau. Actually, it was 2019 in June, where both Aapg and SPE worked together with other organizations to define a fantastic program, which is now being launched all around the world, Gaia, with both organizations. So sustainability stands very, very highly in our objectives in terms of we also have, as was mentioned by Tom and Mark, to take care of all the technical disciplines. And we consider that sustainability could be an overarching element, but the technical disciplines stand alone with their own core sciences and technologies.
Thank you very much, Kamel. Mark, we have a question that is a bit highly structured. I'll read it to you, and it goes along the lines of how is SPE ensuring best practice in the pursuit and transformation? Which experts have been engaged by SPE to support this program? M&A is not strong in this organization's wheelhouse, and instinct will be insufficient. Ditto AAPG, if you know or can share. And obviously, we can address all of those points here. These are things that you guys have been working on since we formed the exploration group. And I think you should be as candid as reasonable. And of course, Kamel, you're welcome to join in. For those who don't know, Kamel and Mark are leading the exploration and merger, and they have been involved since time zero once we made the handshake agreement to just begin this. So they are absolutely familiar with all the mechanics, and I will defer to them at this point.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree that instinct is not sufficient. We, from the get-go, we recognize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that for us to maintain a reasonable time schedule of getting that work done, we needed to bring in an outside facilitator. We have a consulting firm that has significant experience in association mergers, and we also have a team, a small team of both members and staff from both organizations that are overseeing all of the work that's being done. On that team are folks from industry who have significant merger experience in the industry, and that's helpful. We recognize that an association merger is a little bit different, and that's why we brought in the outside consulting firm. We have an ambitious schedule to try to stick to, and so far, by having that outside facilitator, we have been able to stick to that schedule. So I'm pleased with the progress, and for the person who asked the question, you're absolutely right. This can't be driven solely by instinct. It has to be driven by a good, sound process, and I think we do have a good, sound process in place.
Okay. Mark, I hate to come back to you, but oh, sorry, Kamel, you may wanted to add. My apologies.
No, the last merger that was done was a few years ago with the merger with the Canadian Petroleum Society, and it went very smoothly. And we are very pleased to have with us Darcy Spady, the 2018 SPE president, who was very instrumental in this merger and brings lots of experience there.
Thank you very much. Mark, we have a question about, and again, Kamel, you may want to chime in, but I think you and I as members should stay out of this. What is the status of OnePetro and data pages as archives, and how will these be addressed? I paraphrase what was written. So if the Jason wants to put this up, go ahead. But essentially, how is it going to be addressed? And the answer is it's going to be addressed. So go ahead.
Yeah, Data Pages and One Petro are two of the crown jewels of our organizations, but we do have different strategies between Aapg and SPE. We know that we're going to have to address that, but that hasn't been at the top of the priority list for now. It is going to be. This is something that it's going to take some time working out strategically how we address the issue, as well as tactically how do we implement whatever strategies we develop. And I realize that's very vague, but that's really all we have at this point. We know it's important. The programs are important. We know we have to address them, but we don't yet have the answers as to what the future strategy will be.
I'm going to step back to a previous question, and this question is directed actually to you and I, Mark. Will my dues go down? Is Aapg going to have a town hall? Yes, they had one yesterday, and the merger doesn't make sense to me. Do we need a sense of the members' survey vote before we spend any more time on this? And this is as awkward a question as it is. We get this question a lot. So I think, Mark, I'm going to defer to you until such time that Kamel and I have to jump in, but it would be premature to get a sense of what the vote would be before we've done all the work on it. But I'll let you take over.
Yeah, we have had a lot of feedback. We have the feedback form online. We've had several sessions with different groups of members. There clearly are some members who are not supportive, but the vast majority of the feedback we've had has been positive. What I would say is that the feedback is especially positive from some of the areas of the world where we've had the most growth in the last few years, such as the Middle East and Asia. The feedback has also been especially positive from the younger members in the industry. So we're trying to get every opportunity to get feedback. I agree with Tom. I don't think that we need necessarily a survey, but we do have the platform online, the website online, where people can provide feedback. And so, like I said, the feedback is essential. I think there's also a question about the dues. The dues are going to be fairly simple. We haven't made final decisions, but what I certainly don't expect is that anybody's dues are going to increase. For those of you who are members of both organizations, you're going to get actually a clear decrease in the dues that you pay. But what we're not going to do is make some silly decisions I shouldn't say that, but that's what it would be, a silly decision to raise dues as we're doing this. I just don't think it would be wise. It doesn't make any sense.
Mark, it appears that we've lost Kamel for the moment. So I guess you and I will continue. There are some questions about how the actual, and I want to use my fingers like cards, how the merger of Aapg entities and SPE entities will occur. There's also some other questions that are asking about who and how will we incorporate input from young professionals, and are there other mechanisms to get information? I realize I've sort of created an amalgam there, but I think you understand what I'm getting at. Can you give us a little bit of orientation from your perspective as CEO? Do you see any of these being, I don't want to say showstoppers or deal stoppers, but do you see any of these as being insurmountable? Personally, I think they'll happen naturally. Just like you said, they already self-identified and started combining before we even merged. So, I'd say that's going to be pretty easy, but I would like to get your thoughts as well.
There's throughout our discussions, when we've talked about how to merge activities or programs or deal with issues, we kind of default to the simplest approach and the approach that's easiest to implement. I don't know that that's going to work in every case, but yeah, what has surprised me is how positive the discussions have been between the representatives of both organizations when we get together, and how easy. I shouldn't say it's been easy because it's probably going to get hard if I do that, but it's been easier than I anticipated in finding ways to meld programs and to do things like resolve how membership is set up or how the components are set up or that kind of thing. It's going to take a lot of work. There are a myriad of programs that we're going to have to look at over the course of the next year. Some of them are going to be more difficult than others to figure out how to meld or merge or how to operate separately. But I've been really impressed with the respect that each organization has shown towards the other in these discussions, and with the progress we've made thus far.
Okay. I don't know if Kamel wants to add to that. I do have a couple of questions, Kamel, to lean back to you if you want, but do you have any concerns about integration that you may want to mention? And thank you for coming back so quickly.
No, we had a problem with video, but I think that in terms of concerns, not really. We're trying to address with these town halls a very diverse group of stakeholders. And we very strongly encourage you to send feedback through the website about your suggestions. Don't ask us about doing things faster, because basically, if we want to take care of all the details, I don't think that we will be able to accelerate further the process. So we're still looking, as was mentioned by Mark, to have the vote at the end of the first quarter next year. This is obviously provided that both boards of the organization approve at the end of this month what we have done so far. We have focus groups that we are looking what we are targeting. It's extremely important for us to have the feedback from the students, from the young professionals about what are their expectations in the future.
Kamel, if you don't mind, I'm going to come back to you with a question I've been holding for a little while, and it's a little bit vague. I mean, so that way you can have some vision to it. It's going to be your year shortly. What does the future of our professional society look like? And with an evolving energy sector and challenging marketing environments, I think this question really leads into our role in energy transition. I know we've skirted it in this town hall, but I'd like you to take it head on if you don't mind.
Okay, so I encourage you to read the JPT article where I talk about the vision. I call the theme of the 2022 SPE presidency a sustainable recovery. And really, we are trying to recover from the pandemic, and we are also trying to steer the ship towards what is a sustainable energy future. We will definitely find more after the COP26 this year in Glasgow. Certainly hope that there will be some progress on some key issues that will be addressed. But in terms of professional societies, what we see is that we have a big role to play for being part of the solution and absolutely not for being part of the problem. We have been providing very reliably energy to the world. 56% of the energy is coming from oil and gas. There was absolutely no disruption from during the pandemic from the energy supply, despite the very significant restrictions we had to move people, just like due to the progress that the companies have made in terms of digitalization, in terms of new workflows. So we have to continue to develop those workflows of the future that will enable us to be more resilient to cycles in the industry. And by being together, we can be much, much stronger.
Yeah, and Tom, if I could add a comment.
Sure. Go ahead.
You know, one of the things that I want to be sure that people understand is that we're not going to move away from our roots, our core focus on the oil and natural gas industry. We all know that while there's a lot of emphasis on transition, oil and natural gas are going to be just, you know, an incredibly critical part of the energy mix for many, many years to come. And those of us who want to work in this industry will be able to continue to do so. That said, one of the things that I see as important is, and it's been touched on a little bit by Kamel, is to recognize that the skills that our members have are applicable to other opportunities. CCUS is an example. And we want to do everything we can to ensure that we provide opportunities to our members to learn about the other opportunities that are out there and to support them in the work that they're doing.
Okay. Mark, let me throw a really simple one at you. And I do want to say this is simple for me as an SPE member, but this is a question about what happens to the consolidation of offices and locations. And I suspect you won't want to give this too much attention, but if you can at least give it some words, I think people would appreciate that. And also, please, if I can ask Jason to put in the banner the feedback site and maybe leave it on for a few seconds. There are a number of people that are asking for that.
Yeah, so you know, I'm really proud of the staff organization that we've built. It's a global organization. For SPE, over 40% of our staff are now in our offices outside of the U.S. I think it's critical for us to have staff close to the members. I don't see that philosophy changing in the future. I mean, we've got some challenges with the pandemic and the financial pressure that's put on SPE. But their core principles of having staff close to the members, I don't think are going to be changed. Aapg has a much smaller staff organization, but they too have a global footprint. I actually one of the things I see as an advantage, at least for the Aapg side, is the reliance on some of the strong staff organizations we have in various parts of the world that will allow us to actually even expand some Aapg programs. But we're not going to get away from our core philosophy of having staff distributed around the world, of having a staff organization that is culturally astute and can better meet the needs of our members because of that.
Okay. Excellent, Mark. And I would comment that this was discussed yesterday in the Aapg town hall, pardon me, as well. And for those, unlike me, who are relatively new to complicated technology, that is somewhat of a joke, but I am usually the last to learn. That funny looking diagram in the upper right-hand corner, that QR code, if you scan it with your phone, it'll take you to the website. Thank you very much, Jason, for pointing that out. We do have a couple of questions that are a little bit involved, and I would like to ask either Kamel or Mark. There's a comment that next week there are some seminars in this particular individual's location, and they're asking, can we start discussing the integration potential between Aapg and SPE in their domain, because both organizations will be at that regional discussion. I think, Mark, I'm going to let you speak first, Kamel speak next, and I'll speak last.
Okay, I'm not sure I completely understand the question, Tom.
It is, would you expect us to discuss local merger and integration potential and concerns, or is this work jumping the gun?
Yeah, right now it's jumping the gun. You know, what we don't want to do is kind of force things like different groups within the two organizations to merge. We want to create opportunities once the merger is completed. We understand that there are some very large groups within SPE in various places around the world, and in the geological side around the world as well. And some of those may continue to operate independently with hopefully some joint programs. But there are going to be a lot of opportunities, especially where we have smaller groups of members, to merge some of those activities. But to do so now would be jumping the gun, I think. I would ask you to have a little bit of patience and let us work through the process a little bit more.
And I would comment that we did send a sort of cease and desist memo to the membership to ask them to not do that. And we understand that in business, when mergers are announced, they're already done. But this is an unusual circumstance because we're not done. It's going to take a year, and we're about a third of the way through that. So any comment you want to add to correct me on that, Mark, feel free. But I think people need to know this is not a done deal. We have a final vote on both sides. And, we want to enable that vote to be as objective as possible. And I think jumping the gun could have a negative impact. It's great that people want to do that. And I mean that. But I think still we have to recognize we're still independent. The next question is, how do the questions and comments aired here differ or align with those received earlier today for the Eastern Hemisphere? I would say they're quite similar. Jump right in.
Yeah, I think they're similar. They were asked differently. We had, for instance, a question this morning about the financial implications of the merger in terms of, and this was answered by Mark. And we had also questions about the governance of the SPE in the future, about SPE presidency and so on. So there were a few different questions, but they were very much in line with each other.
Very good. Mark, you wanted to say anything? You were wide awake at 1 a.m. with the rest of us.
No, I think Kamel's covered it. But the question about the finances is one that did come up. Actually, for both organizations, the pandemic is affecting our financial situation. I do see the opportunity for some cost savings. It's clearly not the driver for this, but it is a beneficial. To me, one of the bigger drivers, though, is actually the fact that our organizations, while we don't really compete, we do actually compete for resources from members and from companies. And by bringing us together, it'll be easier to I believe, to get the support of the companies that support us through the volunteers that they provide, as well as the financial resources they provide.
Everyone, I was just sort of going up to see if we missed anything. The only question that isn't sort of analogous or matched below with others that we've asked is one about saying that the value proposition of merging the organizations has been really at front. Is there any value proposition to not merging the organizations? And I am paraphrasing that, but however you guys want to answer that, please feel free. And I will say we've addressed this at length with our board. So,
yeah, I'll just make a brief comment, and I think I've already said this, but with the energy transition and all the pressure that's being put on our industry, I think the challenges are greater with regard to those types of issues than any of the challenges I've seen in my career, my 40-year career in the petroleum industry. And we have to all the associations working in the industry have to work together to address these issues. And so whether we merge or not, as well as other organizations that we're not going to merge with, we all have to get together and work together to address the issues related to the energy transition.
Just a quick comment. I think it's going to be a triple win. A win for the SPE members, a win for the Aapg members, but also a win for what we would call the near members. These are members that are close to our societies but have not joined us. And we certainly look forward to attracting new talent in the areas that have been mentioned before, CCUS, hydrogen, geothermal, and because they're also at the heart of the sustainability of the energy sector.
So, gents, we're about done, and I'm going to mention what I mentioned earlier this morning. We didn't engage in this because, it was a whim. We had some very serious discussions amongst us, Mark and I, for example, and they had similar discussions amongst themselves in Aapg. It led to this discussion that we had back in January, February, and Mark and his counterpart had discussions prior to that, which, of course, I endorsed, if you want to put it in terms like that. I feel like this is something we have to do for our membership. It creates a much stronger technical organization. It allows us to be more flexible and to integrate the skills across the organizations. There's a lot of questions on here about where is the SEG, but where are the other organizations? I will tell you candidly that we have spoken to all of them, and the we is Mark and I, and Mark, Kamel and I, and whatever combinations you want to say. They know that the door is open. We are welcoming of anyone who wants to collaborate or cooperate with us in whatever capacity. We believe that this is the best path forward for our membership, for our industry, and for the society that we serve. If you don't, then we simply disagree, and I understand that we have to create a compelling case for that. It can't just be economic. It has to be discipline based. It has to recognize that oil and gas are still going to be in the vicinity of 50% of the energy consumed on this planet in 30 years, maybe even 40, 50 years, depending on how things progress. Not to mention how oil and gas are going to be used for other purposes besides just fuels. So we have a long road ahead of us. We have technologies between geoscience and engineering that will enable a lot of other things, geothermal, for example, carbon capture, sequestration, and utilization, perhaps. The hydrogen aspect is one that's going to take some doing, but as Kamel alluded to, our friends in production and facilities are already looking at using their technologies to create tools for wind and solar farms, etc. I don't see anything that is a clear impediment to member value here, and in fact, I see a multiplicative value in becoming a single organization. And as comment, I've been a career-long member of all three, that is SPE, Aapg, and SEG, and I believe we are leaving the future open for whomever and whatever organizations want to collaborate with us. Last but not least, and Mark has pounded this into me, we are financially responsible for this organization, and we have to do what we think is right. A more cohesive organization is going to be better able to survive financially. It will be better able to create opportunities to have revenue, and ultimately it'll be better able to serve you, the members. So we welcome your comments. We welcome whatever input you may have. And I ask you, as the sitting president for another 3 weeks, please vote whenever the time is right. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to contact me, Mark, Kamel, at your leisure, or again, referencing you back to the website. So that'll be our last word, and we will move to the next phase, which is to address this with our board and to go forward with the discussions and the structural aspects of the merger. You'll continue to hear from us from time to time. And again, we welcome any input that you have, however you wish to give it.